Alright, there's a second part. The rain never seems to cease at this time of year. It pours from the sky in its unending grief, as if longing for something unseen. Thunder roared in the distance, enough so to make the young woman flinch, but not enough to make her waver. The taxi gently rocked as the road turned to rubble, and the rubble turned to overgrown dirt track. Outside of the window, Sophia could barely see a few feet through the raining storm. It made her feel uneasy. In her lap, a letter. She read the words again, despite knowing them off by heart. Dear Sophia, how glad I am to hear that you are well. I am healthy, although I believe I may have a problem with the heart. It has gotten quite lonely waiting here for my parents to return. I am thankful to have Lilika residing with me, but I still await the day when my family will return. But you say that it is safe enough for you to visit, truly? I have never even dared to dream of being able to see you in the flesh. If it's true, then I will await you at the address written on the back of this letter. Yours, Amelie. You sure you have the address right? We're in the middle of nowhere. Sophia stared at the fragile handwritten address Amelie had left her. Had trusted. Yes, this is the right way, I'm sure of it. Her heart wouldn't settle. Meeting what could be a stranger in the middle of nowhere on a day like this, who would have been nervous? Yet there was something else, eagerness and a thrill, something beyond mere nerves that turned into an excitement. She could barely imagine the hand that had penned the letters and she had been receiving for years and let alone a face. For some reason, her heart still beat hard when reading the words. The mysterious young lady of 19 from the manor. Far out. Young lady of 19 from the manor, far out in the middle of nowhere, wrote her. Desperate to calm her jitters, she pulled out her phone, looking to send her worried family one last message of reassurance, only to find that it wouldn't switch on. I'm sure it was fully charged. The rain was falling even more heavily now. In the distance, a building sprang into view. It's surrounded by a tall metal fence with an ornate gate firmly shut at the front. Distant, the taxi sputtered and rolled to a stop, smoke rising from the hood. What the? I had this service a week ago. Is something wrong? Sorry, miss. Looks like we're out of action. It's okay. I think we're nearly there anyway. Pulling the cash from her wallet, she handed over her fare. Handed over her fare and stepped out of the car. Rain bucketed down from above, soaking her to the very core. She shivered as she dashed towards the iron gate. Surprisingly, it pushed open with little effort, not even a creak. She had stopped in front of the large wooden door, finally free from the seemingly never-ending downpour. From afar, that door had seemed inviting enough, but now it looked awfully large and imposing. And yet she raised her fist and knocked anyway. Silence followed. Is this not the right place, after all? The door swung open, this time with a low, menacing groan. On the other side of the doorway was a fair girl with long brown hair and golden eyes. Sophia, forgetting the fact that she was soaking wet, rushed forward and embraced the girl. Amelie! Sophia! Amelia's gentle arms wrapped around Sophia's back in return, and finally all Sophia's worries melted away. My, you're completely drenched. Did you forget your umbrella, perchance? Or perhaps her umbrella got carried away by the wind. Behind Sophia, the front door swung shut without any assistance. I didn't even think to bring an umbrella. The forecast said sunny all day. My fault for believing it, I guess. I can't believe you're truly here. Me either. About time, right? You're just as pretty as I knew you'd be. And you too, but what are you wearing? Ah, seeing your house, I feel like I should have dressed up a little more. No, perhaps it is I that is overdressed. Sophia smiled. Somehow her dress sense seemed to fit her writing style perfectly. Old-fashioned and yet very neat and respectful. Sophia felt a slight heat rise in her cheeks. She really was refined and elegant. Pardon my manner. Lilika is here too. I believe I wrote about her in the past. I remember. I've kept all your letters safe, don't worry. As you should. Ah, sorry, but is there any chance you have a towel? Of course, my apologies. I would usually have someone here to attend to us, but everyone's been sent home. Only the three of us remain. Let me fetch you a towel. Amelia withdrew from the hug. She was a little taller than Sophia, despite both being the same age. We appeared up at her from below before she disappeared down a hallway and in another room. This really is a manor. When she told me about her house, I almost didn't believe it. A layer of dust rested against the table, along with a few other items on the settee. A newspaper set open. She ran her finger over the tabletop. The wood was carved with an intricate pattern rounded around the edge of the surface. Her hand reached across to pick up a book that laid face down. Behind Sophia, the wind began to shake in the wind. The window began to shake in the wind as her fingertips gazed the surface. It's so windy. She spun around just in time to see the front door fly open, and the howling wind filled the entryway. She drove to the door, and the great effort she shut it again. Phew! Immediately, when Sophia spun back around, the newspaper and the items on the table were all gone. Sophia! Oh, Amelie. Please use this. Thanks, I'll bring an umbrella next time, I promise. Sophia took the towel in her hand. It was soft, but somewhat old. She lightly dried her hair and her clothes, but still found herself cold. Then if you're now dried off, would you care for a tour of the house before afternoon tea? That sounds great. Oh, you're right. On your right is the pantry, and down the hall is the boiler room, but you shouldn't have any need for those spaces. The two walked side by side, alone in such a big manner. These are all guest bedrooms. I've prepared this one for your use. If you find anything not to your standards, you can let myself or Lilika know. Amelie, I have a feeling your standards are much higher than mine. I've never been in a house like this. That looks like this. No, is your home not similar? Well, it's a lot smaller. There is no shame in that. You own your own property, yes? Yeah, I recently bought it. With your husband? What? No, of course not. I'm not married. Your father allowed you to buy property on your own? Amelie, you speak just like how you write. I'm so surprised. And you speak quite casually. People usually say that about me. Being here around you makes me want to be more formal. What need is there for formality between friends? That's true too. This is the morning room, and the next door, the dining room. We'll be having afternoon tea in the sitting room here. So many rooms. Upstairs in the bedroom, in the master bedroom, I must ask that you do not enter the master bedroom, as it belongs to my parents, who are currently away. From the landing below, Sophia could see the door to the master bedroom. For some reason, her eyes was glued to it. Come inside. Come open the door. We're waiting for you. Sophia, of course, I won't go poking around anyway. Sophia shook her head, and time seemed to resume around her. All this walking has made me parched. Shall we take afternoon tea now? Sure, that sounds good. Why don't you have a seat while Lilika and I prepare our food? Oh, I can come help. Nonsense, you're my guest. It would be remiss of me to allow you to lift a finger, if you insist, but I'm happy to help anytime. Thank you. I'll be back soon. Please rest. It's nothing. Take your time. Actually, it's okay. If I ask you something? Of course it is. Is there somewhere else in the house with us? Is there someone else in the house with us? There's no one else apart from myself, you, and Lilika. And Lilika is... She's just gone into the kitchen. Didn't you see her enter? Right. My vision must be playing up. Is something the matter? No, it's fine. I'll wait for you inside. The room was spacious and dead silent apart from Sophia's footsteps as she crossed the wooden floor. Each step was deliberate and slow as her eyes searched through the room. Nothing in particular stood out. Large windows showed a glimpse of the outside world through thick curtains. Rain was still coming down hard, obscuring her view. The windows shook every now and then, but the wind had seemed to die down a little. Behind her, a chair at the dining table had been pulled out as if it were waiting for her to sit down. Amelie, was that you? Amelie? Her hand rested against her chest, begging her heart to calm. Or Lilika. Whether a hollow laugh sounded through the room or not, she wasn't sure. She quietly sat down in the seat that was left for her. The table was already set, but once again she noticed a thin layer of dust on the surface. Through the silence, Sophia could hear it again. Footsteps. This time directly above. The master bedroom. In front of her very eyes, Sophia watched the scene unfold. A woman not older than 40 removed her. Nothing was disturbed. She reached up and took hold of the noose. The rope was wrapped around her neck like the finest pearl necklace. Join me. The woman's eyes locked on Sophia's. Her hand was outstretched, waiting to be taken. A rusty smell filled her nose, assented with a faint smell of perfume. Sophia shivered in response, her breath frosty on her lips. She reached for the hand slowly. I'm back! Ah! Sophia? Oh, Amelie. I'm sorry, you scared me. Is everything alright? Sophia stared at the spot with the woman. It was only a moment ago. Both she and the noose had disappeared. Amelie, something is the matter, isn't it? Did something happen within this room? Happen? What exactly do you mean? Did Did a woman with brown hair tied to a bun and a dark green dress ever live here? Well, it sounds like me like you're describing my mother. Your mother? Yes, she just as you described, but you couldn't have seen her here. She's still away. Right. Let me pour us tea before it gets cold. Will Lalika be joining us? I believe so. Was she here a moment ago? No, she wasn't here. How strange. She told me she was coming to sit with you. Perhaps she's gotten herself busy with something else. Should we wait? There's no need. It would be sad to let the tea go cold. Sophia watched as the tea filled two out of the 3 cups. The 3rd cup sat empty. For some reason, the very sight filled her with dread. She picked up the cup and brought it to her lips. It was green tea. Its taste was bitter and musty. With her heart on edge, she placed the cup back down on the saucer, smiling towards Mealy. Did you have such trouble getting here? A little. My ride broke down, so I had to walk for a bit. Broke down? Ah, I'm extremely sorry. If the staff had been here, I would have sent someone to collect you. It's okay. It's a little rain. I just want you to catch a fever. My medicine store has been running low of late. No worries. I usually carry ibuprofen with me. Ibuprofen? I haven't heard of it. Anyway, I'm glad you arrived here safely. I'll draw you a bath for you later to make sure you are warmed up properly. Thank you. Amelia sipped at her tea before looking down at it with a confused expression. A little stale. I'll ask my father to procure a new batch when he arrives home. Where are your parents, by the way? Well, we were separated due to the plague. They took the staff, went into a cure is found, and left me here with Alika as to not catch the disease. Right, I understand. I spent a lot of time separated from my family due to the pandemic, too. It warms my heart to find another thing in common with you, Sophia. I was surprised to hear that it is safe enough for you to visit. Perhaps this means my parents will be back soon, too. I think so. The world seems to be opening back up again. So what do you do locked up in this big house all the time? Well, I usually spend my time sewing or playing music. I used to write, but my parents wondered if it was feminine enough. I don't really think that matters. If you enjoy it, then I say you should do it. Sophia. And what about you? Well, I'm studying at art university right now, so I guess that's what I spend most of my time on. You attend a university? Yeah, although I'm thinking about dropping out. Sophia, you truly are filled with surprise. You own your own land and you attend school? How jealous I am. Why don't you do the same? Oh no, I'm not allowed. Of course you are. Anyone can attend within reason. But, well, wouldn't it get in the way of my marriage? You're engaged? Amelie shook her head. No, not yet, but I'm already 19. I'm sure my father has prepared my dowry. An arranged marriage? Yes, naturally. I don't think I'll ever get married. Really? Doesn't your family object? I don't think they really mind as long as I'm happy. You don't have to either, you know. You've given me much to think about, much indeed. Now I wonder where Lily gets disappeared to. Oh, it's no matter. The evening is already coming and soon it'll be dark. Shall I draw your bath? That sounds wonderful. To be honest, I'm not hungry, so can we have skip dinner tonight? Of course, if that's what you wish, let me show you to the bathroom. Before she left the room, Sophia took one last look back at where the noose once hung. You may not believe it, but my father had taps installed. Isn't that wonderful? Like taps for a bath? That's right, we used to have our maids fill the bath, but now there's no need. Ah, Amelia, you're so strange. I have taps in my house too. Really? You must live quite the lavish lifestyle yourself. I don't know about that. This is the bathroom. Allow me to draw a bath for you. One moment. Alone in the hallway, Sophia peered back up the grand staircase past the large stained glass window, and at the dark door shut tight. A moment later, Amelia popped back out of the bathroom. Feel free to go inside and make yourself comfortable. I'll return with a towel in a moment. Thanks, Amelia. Water spewed from the rust pipes into the steel-lined wooden bathtub. Everything else was silent. Sophia took a careful step forward and peered into the bath. All seemed normal. With a sigh, she finally let her shoulders relax, yet in her mind, all she could see was that woman, with her outstretched hand reaching towards her. Clutched her hand to her chest. It still shook. Sophia stumbled forward until her hands rested on either side of the washroom. Her fingers held on tight until the knuckles were bone white. It's okay, Sophia. Her eyes traveled up to the mirror. It was embellished with the golden frame. She stared at her reflection. She would kill herself. It was all a figment of her imagination. That's when she saw it. In the mirror, standing behind her, was a young woman with long blonde hair that nearly reached down to the floor and deep blood-red eyes. She didn't try to speak or make any movement. She just stared with her big, dark eyes. Who? Sophia wanted to spin around to confront the girl, but her whole body was frozen stiff. The young woman finally started to move. One step at a time, maintaining eye contact to the mirror, she crept closer, closer and closer until Sophia swore she could feel her breath on her back of her neck. Her mouth seemed to be moving, but no words escaped her lips. Who are you? She spun around, but no one was there. The water overflowed from the tub, spilling out over the floor. Sophia rushed forward to turn off the tap and noticed it. Oh no. Water that came from the tap was red. Dark, deep red. She hurried toward the tap for what felt like forever and finally it stopped. Sophia stared at the dark liquid in the tub. Without thought, her hand dipped in. When she withdrew it, each finger was dyed red. Something about it captivated Sophia. She undressed one leg at a time, peeling away the still damp clothing, and stepped forward and into the bathtub. She sank down until everything under her shoulders was submerged in the liquid. It felt heavier than water, much heavier. As she stared directly ahead, those blood-red eyes reflected in her mind. Why not just end it here? You're scared, aren't you? Just sink down. Accept your fate. Accept it. She could no longer hear the sounds of the door opening as her face sunk down into the liquid, her eyes shut. Sophia, I knocked but didn't hear a reply. I've brought you a towel. Ah! Sophia's eyes sprung open. The water was clear. The tap was still running, causing it to overflow onto the floor once again. Sophia drew her knees to her chest, still facing away from Amelia's voice. Her heart rose to her cheeks. Feet rose to her cheeks. Being seen like this by her. Oh, Sophia, please forgive me. I didn't realize you had already entered the bath. No, it's okay. I'm sorry you surprised me. I'll leave the towel over here. Thanks. The door shut again. Sophia finally turned back to look at where Amelia once stood. No one was there anymore. Not Amelia, not a woman in a long green dress, or a young lady with blonde hair. She sighed. What's going on? Sank into the water. Sank into the water, although this time fully conscious of what she was doing. Not feeling all that much better, she stepped out and took hold of the towel that Amelia had left for her. Water fell from her body as she stared at the cloth. The towel was pink, similar to her favorite hoodie. The towel was old and full of holes and what seemed to be burn marks. Reluctant, she wrapped it around her body. From outside the door, Amelia's voice called out to her. Let me come help, Sophia. When you're done in there, you can come to your room. Okay, thanks, Amelia. Who is she? Hoping. Lilika? She shivered. The room had become awfully cold, and the towel did little to bring her warmth. She picked up her discarded clothes and dressed. Her clothes felt foreign and wrong on her. Sophia took a deep breath and swallowed hard. I'm okay. The hall was already darkened with no light spilling from the windows. A few sconces attached to the walls were lit with live flames, but it offered little in the way of calming her. Sorry guys if I'm saying that wrong. Step, step, step. The floor creaked under her weight. She stopped outside of her room. Inside she could hear talking. She put her ear to the door. Amelia. Didn't we already speak of this? You cannot leave the house. But surely the greenhouse would be safe. No one else uses it, and it's only a few steps from the back door. It is unsafe, you know this. What's gotten into you? Is it because of your friend? I just thought it would be nice to at least sit in the sun. Then you may sit by the window in the dining hall. Is it really so unsafe that even taking a foot outdoors would be dangerous? Yes. Sophia opened the door and entered the room. Amelia stood by herself, making the bed. Sophia, I see you're done with the bath. Sophia looked away, thinking of what had happened in the bathroom. Where were you? Were you talking about the greenhouse? Yes, did you see it when you arrived? I did, but it looked as if the plants inside had died. Oh, that's impossible. It's barely been any time at all since the gardeners left. I'm sure the plants inside are more sturdier than that. Well, even if they had died, maybe we could go in and replant some things tomorrow? How wonderful. Have you not heard a word I said? It's unsafe to do so. Oh. Oh, don't be such a spoiled sport. I think it would be perfectly fine. Well, it's getting late now, so I'll leave you to retire. If you need anything, my room is just upstairs on the left. Good night, Sophia. The door shifted before Amelia could even touch it. Sophia's eyes locked in one on the movement. Amelia, would you stay for a while? Is something the matter? Just a little homesick. Sophia sat down on the bed before resting her head on the pillow. It was hard. Of course, why don't we have a chat for a while? Then come join me. Sophia gently pet the spot beside her in the bed. The bed, okay. Sophia looked towards Amelia in the low light. Right now, she seemed hauntingly beautiful, as if she were nothing more than a ghost. Thanks for staying with me for a while. It's nothing to worry about, truly. I wanted to spend more time with you. Really? You don't find me boring? You are the most interesting person I've ever met. Don't be silly. I'm being completely honest. You truly are so unique. I think the same about you. I've never met anyone like you, really. Her mind flashed back to all she had seen. Really, she truly had never met anyone like Amelie. You wrote so much about yourself, and yet seeing you in person, I fear there is still so much I don't know. There's plenty of time for us to tell each other everything. Then tell me something about yourself, something you've never told anyone. I'm partly blind in my right eye. Really, how well can you see? It's okay, just a little blurry, really. You tell me something. Tell me something she thought. Tell me what's going on here. Tell me I'm not insane. Well, when I was 12, I stole the cookie jar from the kitchen and blamed my brother. He was scolded for hours. Aha, what a mischievous child. I'm sure your brother wasn't all too pleased. Actually, it was his idea. He knew I wanted it, and he told me to tell my parents it was him if I was asked. What a good brother. Where is he now? Did he go away with your parents? Amelie shook her head. He died when he was 16. Oh, I'm so sorry, Amelie. What happened? Scarlet fever, so my family was left with only me as their heir. And what worth is a female heir? You're worth plenty, more than plenty. Thank you, Sophia, but someday I am unsure. It's your turn again. Truthfully, I said before I didn't want to get married, but that's not exactly right. I do. Oh? I just don't want a husband. Then, I'm sorry, does it make you uncomfortable? No. I have also thought I don't want a husband. Whenever my father's brought it up, I've felt sick to my stomach. How about coming away with me for a while? Away? Outside the house? What about the sickness? Yes, away from this place. It's okay now, you'll be okay. You could come stay at my house. I could show you around my school. You don't have to go through an arranged marriage if you don't want to. You would do that for me? You are my dearest friend, and I actually... Lilika? Some point, the two women had gotten close enough together that they could feel each other's breath on their lips. The two parted with reddened cheeks, Amelie quickly brushing her skirt off and standing up. I should be going to bed. Please rest well. We can talk more about it in the morning, right? Right. Good night, Amelie. I'll see you tomorrow. Amelie, wait a moment. Yes? What does Lilika look like? What a funny question. You've seen her plenty of times already. What a funny question. You've seen her plenty of times already. With my eye, I sometimes struggle a little. Right, my apologies. She has long blonde hair, done up like this. Amelie pretended to put her hair into two low ponytails. What color is her eyes? Red, and she wears a dress of white and black with a red ribbon, the same color as her eyes. Thank you, Amelie. Good night. See you in the morning. Amelie left the room. Meanwhile, Sophia's eyes studied the space. Are you here, Lilika? Silence followed. If I stay here, will I live to see more silence? The flame by the side of her bed flickered wildly. She laid back, shutting her eyes, but she felt as if waiting and biding their time. Cold tentacles wrapped around her throat like a snake, cool like ice and getting tighter and tighter. She breathed. She couldn't even move. She opened her eyes, but no one was there. Sophia wasted no more time. She jumped to her feet and quickly shoved them back into her shoes and headed for the door. It opened without any resistance. Outside the room, the hallway was dark, lit only by a handful of candles and scones. Or whatever. Sorry, guys. Sophia swallowed and stepped out. The house was silent. Sophia took careful steps, but the floorboards still squeaked loudly beneath her. During the day, she hadn't even noticed it, but now, wrapped in darkness, it seemed as if those small sounds would wake whatever was sleeping inside the house. Amelie, Lilika, she whispered, but heard no response. Upon being met with only more silence, her footsteps sped up. Far in the distance, she heard something shift, a slight sound, one that wouldn't normally be noticed. But for Sophia, it was enough to make her heart race. She sped to the end of the hall and stood at the bottom of the grand staircase above her. Her eyes honed in on two doors in particular. The master bedroom and the door to Amelia's room. Amelie? The choice was obvious. Sophia raced up the stairs and stood in the front of the door to her pen pal's room, but as she went to knock, the door fell open. Amelie, are you in there? She received no reply. Sophia's head spun around. From somewhere deep in the dark, a gentle tune was being played skillfully. Her arms dropped to her side. The sound consumed her. Sophie drifted back out of Amelia's bedroom, facing that dreamy song. Step through the darkness. All that mattered was that sound. She came to the end of the hallway. A single door stood in her way. A bookcase was pushed to the side. Without a second thought, she pulled it open. In the center of the room, surrounded by candles, Amelia sat. Her skirt fanned out around her. Battered over the floor were piles of letters. Open upon closer inspection, each was filled with words that had been crossed out and signed with yours. Marina. Amelia, are you awake? Her eyes were shut tight. Her hands moved enough to play sorrowful tunes. Please listen to me, Amelia. Like, the leak is she isn't... I am not what? You're going to leave her, aren't you? Sophia heard the door shut behind her. She backed up quickly and tried the handle, but it was stuck. Amelia's eyes finally opened, and in place of her usual gold eyes was a glare of deep red. Amelia snapped out of it. Please snap out of it. You want to take her away? Amelia, please. One by one, the candles blew out and the two were plunged into darkness. Amelia's body slumped forward and crashed to the ground. It's nice to meet you, Sophia. I'm sure we're going to have a fun time living together. Since you will be staying with us after all, right?